Today's podcast is brought to you by Blue Canary. The bird has landed on beautiful Bainbridge Island, conveniently located at 499 Madison Avenue. ASE Master Technician Clint Ramsey brings over 15 years of experience, award-winning diagnostic skill, and a desire to reinvent the automotive repair experience. Schedule an appointment online at bluecanary.biz or call them today at 206-451-4220.
I'm Maria Metzler, the Executive Director of Helpline House. The global pandemic has affected us all differently. If you or your neighbors need food assistance, mental health counseling, rental assistance, or Parks and Rec vouchers, please reach out. Helpline House can help in many ways. Find us on the web at helplinehouse.org. It's what we do. Neighbor helping neighbor.
I got something for your mind, body, and soul. I got something for your mind, body, and soul.
You have found the B.I.STANDER Podcast. Now here's your host with the most, Tiny Tim.
What's good, Podcastville? You found the B.I.STANDER Podcast. Happy generic time of day to you. We're coming to you back in Studio 15 with today's guest, Dennis Miller. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing pretty good, Tim. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be a new experience for me, and I'm looking forward to it.
I think you're going to be a pro. You're easy to talk to, easy to look at, too.
Yeah, old gray guy with a beard, easy to look at.
Appreciate you taking some time out of your day and going on a walk with Ruby, your dog, and me and Acer. Appreciate that. That was nice time to get to know you a little bit, and it's a pleasure having a walk with you.
Well, part of this format was that everybody is doing things on Zoom, and it was nice to make a contact where you just meet somebody, have a conversation, see if it'll work out. It was a fun walk. I enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, the days of doorbell ringing or door knocking kind of is dead in politics after COVID, correct?
Well, I don't know. I had this one little experience. I put my little flyers out on mailboxes, and I think I told you before, I was trying not to touch a mailbox because I know that, and I was trying to be really careful. At this one mailbox, it was really fancy, so I posted my note onto the fence post right out on the edge of the road. And it's got my name and my phone number on it, and somebody called me and said, "Oh, totally upset. It's private property. You shouldn't touch it. I should report you." And so I called them back, and I said, "I'm trying to be respectful. I didn't want to walk up to your door, just like you said. I didn't get those kind of flyers with the doorknob hooks. Trying to be really careful and respectful and just trying to be on property and apologize." And they were really nice. But she said, "I'm just getting really tired of all those landscaping rocks thrown with their card in."
What's up with that? People, if you don't know what we're talking about, they take a little Ziploc bag, put a business card in there, and then a rock and chuck it on your lawn and say, "Hey, let me mow your yard." It's a guerrilla style of marketing.
Yeah, the hardest part for me when I started this was try to go, I think I said this when I was doing the League of Women Voters. I'm sitting there trying to sign up and go, who's going to vote for me? Who even knows me besides 100 kids, parents that I coach for soccer that might be around still or might not be around? So it was hard to find out how to make that happen, especially with COVID going on, and there's no face-to-face on so many things. We're just barely getting out of that now. So, I hope the flyers didn't upset too many people. No,
and I appreciate, social distance walking on a trail that we're talking about, environment, what the parks are doing, what kind of land use we're going to have around here. It's nice to get out there and have that conversation. One of the few things that I always looked forward to with pre-COVID was, coffee with the mayor, or some people had open hours. And I think Cole Medina was the one that started that. And a few of the council people picked up on it. And it was nice to have an opportunity and go have a cup of joe at TNC and sit down with somebody for a few minutes and say, "Hey, have this concern." My concern, since I lived by the high school, was illuminating the crosswalk at the crest where everybody picks up the kids, because it was poorly reflective. And when it was rainy or foggy or the sun was shining, and right as when kids were going into school, the busiest time, and everybody's rushing off to the ferry, it was a kind of a blind little hill, and it wasn't designated. And it got done eventually, but I think that had more to do with persistence with the planning commission and saying, hey, we've had kids hit, or people in general hit on this island, joggers and ladies in crosswalks and stuff, and we've had some issues.
No, that's actually really important. I've traveled around the island a lot, when I'm doing small repairs and small work, and I make those intersections all the time, going down to the lumber yard or going to the town for something. And I always had that same issue, especially around the high school. And I tell you what I'm disappointed in is that we have a roundabout that's full of plants, because I've pulled in there with many times when the kids are leaving school, and you have to get almost halfway through it before you see the crosswalk on the other side. Mm-hmm. And it's great to have the plants and great to have I just don't know whoever decided that we should have landscaping growing in the middle of an intersection. So I understand your point with safety.
Yeah. I think we could talk about roundabouts all day.
Yeah, well, no kidding.
What's your first opinion on the one on Madison? I know the sponsor, and shout out to Blue Canary Auto. Great service there. Their business dipped for a long, long time because you couldn't even get into their facility because of that roundabout project. And I don't know if they got compensated by the city for their, kind of closed business practice while all that construction was going on. And then it was kind of poorly marked at first. I mean, people were just driving right over it. It was a small hump, and I understand that large trucks need to get through there. But how do you think that project got to be looking the way it was when it first started out, and how do you view it now? I know that's a highly trafficked area.
Well, I think we always want to make improvements. And, a lot of things on paper look like a good improvement. I mean, I know that from all the years of looking at plans and looking at construction and going, well, that might look good on paper, but it's not the greatest idea. In that case, you want to make it safer and make it more efficient. And I don't think what we've done has, but now that I'm getting used to it, it's not necessarily a negative. I think the challenge is I go through there with my pickup truck, and I can't make like a 270 to get up a different direction without going over the bump. And the problem with that is that also when I'm going to the intersection and I see people coming to it, I don't know where they're going to go. When it was a four-way stop, they had a turn signal on. Mm-hmm. So there's just more hesitant when I go in. Is this person coming all the way around to go out, or are they going to turn? And so I think it's more difficult. I think we'll all get used to it. I don't know the answer there. Was it better before? Maybe. Was it better now? I don't know. I'm one of those guys that signal out of a roundabout, not going in, because we all know right. You're going right coming into the roundabout, people. But there's not an opportunity to even get my signal on in that smaller roundabout whatsoever. So you really don't know what direction that car's going any longer. And I do that at the high school one too, up the high school road. I signal when I'm coming out because I want people to know that they can come in because I'm leaving. But you're right, you can't do anything on that small one. But the intersection is really probably too small for the roundabout then. Maybe that should have been the idea at the beginning.
I know we had an initiative, I think 4 years ago, about infrastructure and making the city more walkable that did not pass. How do you feel the improvements are going around the island? I just asked you, and I'm going to tell you how I feel.
It's always
Nobody
good
cares.
To know. I don't know. I might have to represent you on the council someday. I should care.
I enjoy the widening of Miller down by the Grand Forest. I thought that was a huge improvement. Fletcher Bay seems to be getting worked on there and near Eagle Harbor. We definitely have false safety lines on the roads where the white line is non-existent or actually crumbling on the edge there. So there's a lot of areas that aren't walkable. And then I saw housing developments go in and they didn't have to make sidewalks and such. And it's just like, it's not really long-term planning. And that initiative, it seemed like it was going to take, 10 years plus to get all that stuff done at like cost of $1 million per block. And it just was poorly written. What kind of things would you like to see happen in the infrastructure here on Bainbridge Island?
Well, my son goes for bike rides all the time, and I used to ride the bike more down there. So I think the improvements on Miller that you're talking about by the Grand Forest are great, the bike path. And that's really a great setup. I also think we need to improve some of the parking that's down there. We've done that a little bit to let people park off the road to do the hikes and walks and stuff, but there really needs to be more. I mean, I walk my dog all the time, and there's many times both at the Grand Forest and up at Gasm Lake, there's not quite enough parking. Mm-hmm. And I understand that you have to take out some trees and do things to do that, but we really need to facilitate people being able to enjoy those parks and do the walks. I would direct more funds at improving those roads and improving those things. I think we have this big picture of things. Let's put climate action plan into progress here. We have a large plan for that, and it's a big time thing, and we should consider everything we do with what we're involved in our environment and our climate. But we need to take care of the things that are the smaller things that we can do now that are important. And, walking and roads and safety are really important. I think I would direct more that way and keeping the big picture in mind at the same time.
Well said. Part of that kind of leans into affordable housing. There was a developer.
What kind of lean is that?
The infrastructure on Madison.
I'm just kidding.
When they were talking about the roundabout and stuff, there was a project by Mike Burns to put in improvements in a building that's pretty dilapidated and to provide housing for the people that were in there and have a mixed-use retail space in a density zoned area. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen, but there was such a cry for affordable housing and infrastructure. I was surprised. And then recently, there was a hotel in a prominent space down in Winslow that he sunk $850,000 in and seemed to go through all the right channels. And some people are calling it a bait and switch. I'm not as familiar about it as some are, but that seems like two projects of development that also provided parking, infrastructure, sidewalks, contribution to affordable housing. Why do you think those things happened with this current council?
Why they got deleted?
Yeah. I mean, there was a Suzuki property for a while talking about affordable housing there. That crashed. I didn't like how that idea was, massively packed into 70 units or whatever. But the one on Madison and the hotel seemed like those were legit, and the city was helping him out, and then the plug got pulled.
No, I don't go back to the whole process on that either, but I do have a couple of things to say on that. I don't think we should have anything in the city ordinances that allows a developer to buy more density. And there were some funds paid to the city in that. I just think that doesn't make sense to me. It seems like it's over the counter. It's not behind the scenes. You're not buying it, but it seems like you're just paying the county to go in the coffer to do with money that we're not very good at with the city. The city's not very good at utilizing that money towards housing or anything else. So I think that my position is that I don't think we should increase density anywhere. That if we have set zoning and set guidelines, we stick with those. We don't bonus anybody into anything. I think I told you on the walk, I'm not for 87 units of anything on the island. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more that I see as a builder involved with that. Is there going to be 87 parking spots that go with that? If it's full the whole time, is there going to be parking spots for the cleaners, for the people that take care of it? Are we taking responsibility for doing laundry every day and all that system going into our sewage system and stuff? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the hotel shouldn't be there. It just seems like the size of that project, because we allowed to buy in more density in the project, just was oversized. And we don't think of all the little pieces involved in it. And I just realized we should be more conscious of everything down the line that adjusts with our projects. And I know we want to force people into having more walk to where they want to go, to have a transit to where you want to go, to eliminate your cars, to do things so you have that. But it doesn't happen so far that I see in our culture. You have a 2-bedroom condo, there's 2 cars there. I don't care if it's in town or not. And that, I know that's being a little bit hard, and there is the exception. There's a lot of people that walk and do things, but we have to just accommodate that. And if we're going to make sure we cover that part of it, we probably have to downsize a little bit what we're doing for density and for units.
Well, with that money going to the city and plans being approved and him being forthright saying that, I believe what he had said, the architectural plans to make it a LEED or lead, how do you say that?
Yeah, LEED.
LEED building with, kind of a carbon neutral footprint. It's going to take time, more time than the permitting allowed. And I thought he was upfront with that, and they still okayed it and still took his money and then denied him as soon as that had expired.
Did we refund him?
That is the ultimate question.
We should refund him. He should get his money back, and there should be some apology. I've told everybody during my lifetime of construction, if you buy something and you want to develop it and you within the rules, then that's what should happen. I'm not saying those rules are something I agree with and are right, but as long as you find those guidelines. And I don't know him, but if he was following the guidelines at that time and did the procedures that we had on the books, he should be able to complete his development. I go back and say we should never got to that far in the first place with that size. I looked at some of the renderings of that. It was a nice looking hotel. I mean, the structural building is nice and design was really nice. I think from my point of view, if it was 42 units or something different, that was more appropriate, that would have been something that I would have, been more open to. But again, if he was within the guidelines that we had, then we just have to make sure those guidelines aren't there if that's not what we want. Do
you think we need a hotel at all?
I think we need a boutique hotel. That's pretty cool. That some friends come to visit, they could stay at.
Okay.
I don't know what size that should be. I don't know that dimension of that property. I've been there when there was the old barbecue place down at the inn. You could go there.
Shout out to Greg Epstein.
And when there was a restaurant up front that burned down, I've been there. So I know that property could accommodate some nice commercial space. And to me, as long as the hotel had the size that allowed for the parking, just for that one time that it's maxed out and the people aren't walking off the ferry and they drive there, high school graduation, everybody shows up from, our family around. As long as it accommodates like full occupancy sometime and our systems can take care of it, that'll be fine.
Now, do you think the city should be managing low-income housing or affordable housing, or should that be something that falls on Housing Resources Bainbridge?
I don't think the city should manage anything like that. I think the job of the city is service company. We serve the people in the community. We don't manage it. We don't. No, give it to Housing Resources Board. Let them manage it. They're specialized in that, and that's what they do.
Okay, that brings me right into your hidden agenda and pet projects. The couple of things that stick out to me about you right away is that, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't fact check a lot of stuff. You're not taking donations for the campaign. Is that a correct statement?
Unless you call my own checkbook donations.
And you have an agenda which is basically just listening to the community members and the people. I think you have some great ideas about environmental stewardship, housing, infrastructure, things like that. But I think they're all equally important to you. And I feel like other candidates have agenda and goals. It's fine to have goals, but as long as it's not just individualistic type goals. What would you say some of your, top priorities would be on city council?
Well, I think I said and tried to write in some of these situations where, first off, I'm not taking donations. I've had 3 or 4 people say, where can I send money? How can I do that? And I thought, I didn't really think this campaign needed that, naive as I was, all right, until I actually went back and looked at some of the past campaigns. I'm talking about even way back when $40,000 were raised and there was action committees going on. I go, really, on Bainbridge? And even currently, the candidates are raising several thousand. And I see it on advertising on the paper and everything else. So I understand that. But at first I thought, just get out and tell the people what you want to do and what you believe, and they show that you're a good person and you care about your community. That's all that's needed. So I didn't go that route trying to solicit that. We got that pet project question from one of the papers, and I thought, okay, it's important to me that we do everything that's needed for the community and not necessarily that here's what I want to work on climate action, or I want to steward the forest, or I want to have open, inclusion, everything. It just, all those are important to our community to kind of develop things. So it isn't that I don't have something I'm care and passionate about. It's just that I don't think I should direct my focus in that way when all the issues are really important. What's going on? I'm trying not to be a thing that sort of say I'm copying out of this answer, but I think that things are important in our environment. That's hugely important, and that's part of every single thing we do. From you talked about earlier, fixing the roads, to where our housing developments go, to where our apartment development goes, to where our development for a hotel goes. Everything affects our environment. Everything affects our climate action plan. Everything is part of it. Mm-hmm. So we just have to put that package together and be concerned about all those issues.
Yeah, I think we underestimate how much we pollute our environment here. We've had the sewage spills. We've had the Superfund at the creosote site for 30 years. We have a ferry that just constantly dumping fuel into the bay. It is red tide all the time. I remember times where there was just such good crabbing and clamming here on and around the island, and now you can't eat this stuff, and the crabs are disappearing. And I was at TNC the other day, and it was $50 a pound for crab. So in my mind, that means there's a scarcity. So we're definitely having an effect on, shellfish for sure. And like you were saying too, if we build dense places, what are we doing with the cars? Where's the parking garage? Where's the rainfall going? All those things become issues for the environment. Where do you think we're failing the environment the most on the island?
Well, I think we're failing it in what we develop and what we allow to be developed. And I'm surprised that we have a planning commission that allows some of the things that go on that happen. And you look at those boards, and we have architects, we have educated people, we have people that should know better, in my opinion. It's simple. I've been around construction for 40 years, and I'll just go back to the simplicity of it. We have a project when I first moved here, Northtown Woods is being built out. Those houses are 2,200, 2,400 square feet. Nice homes. Mm-hmm. And so
very desirable between schools.
Yeah. And so now we decide that we need to do things like our little Winslow Grove project down off Weaver, and then in the project right in town on Duane Lane. Those houses are 3,500, 3,600, 3,700 square feet on similar sized lots as Northtown Woods. And I just have the simple notion that if we build 2,400 square foot houses, there's 1,000 less square foot of materials, of construction, of people on the project, of waste going to the landfills. And just the simple things like that help climate action and help our carbon footprint. So I'm not advocating that the world's growing. We're changing. Mm-hmm. Things are happening. But if we just bring it back to some of those simple ideas of things and steward it that way, and then also just be concerned about these density centers. It seems interesting that we're focusing so much on Linwood Center and Rolling Bay and Island Center when we've already restricted from those areas from building. Those are all septic systems. And if we can push the density there, are we looking to build a new sewage treatment plant someplace? I mean, it's just surprising to me that we even focus on that. We don't have the facilities to even make those areas grow.
And haven't we met the county's 10-year mandate for growth already? I
think that's a state and county mandate. And from what I've read a little bit, and then actually a couple of other candidates pointed that out in some of their talks, that we have met that growth. We are a zone, so we can cover that. All right. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we have to have these bonuses to force density and to add more units in the downtown.
How would you go about making city council meetings shorter? I try to stay informed, but it's hard when it goes 4 to 6 hours.
So I watch a few of those meetings lately, and there be a simple motion put up. Let's add this to the agenda. And then there's a discussion that somebody wants to change that motion, then somebody wants to change it again, then somebody wants to change it back, and all of a sudden they've lost track of what the motion was, and it's so convoluted and confused, nobody really knows what to do with it, and they have to go back and reevaluate. I think it just to make it clear. And there's many times when it seems like there's a council member who brings something up just to have their voice brought up. And I've seen this I I haven't been on a lot of committees and organizations in my life, but the ones I have on, there's always people who just need to talk because they haven't been heard yet and they have something to say. And it's almost made up to talk that way. I just think we have to just get the process done and be quicker with it.
Yeah, part of this podcast is me setting aside an hour or two to listen to somebody else, because I used to have that same problem, wanted to hear my voice and never shut up. I always be looking to formulate my reply and not really hearing or listening to the person who's talking to me. By the way, what'd you say? When you've gone out, have you had any super good experiences talking about your campaign with any groups or individuals, and what did that look like?
Well, I mentioned to you earlier today before we got online on the phone here that not very experienced with the Zoom situation. So I'll let you know, the League of Women Voters, great organization, happy they put us all together. But here I am on the screen for the first time with a little bleeping, sign that says 10 seconds left, and you're trying to get an answer in there. I realized that I wasn't really prepared for screen time, and that takes some practice. So I've had that's been difficult experiences. I mentioned to you earlier, I had with the Bainbridge Black Leaders, and that was just all of a sudden it changed the whole process, because it was a great experience where I come in, everybody introduces themselves, tells me a little about their kid or their dog, and it felt like you were just joining them for a conversation in their home. That was a nice experience. I've had I put out a little flyer. I think I told you, and I'll tell the listeners, that I was trying not to touch mailboxes, was attaching them to the post, not the box, trying to be respectful. And I had one lady call me from an area on Bainbridge that said, "Your flyers were so tacky, I'm not going to vote for you." And I called her back and talked to her and said, "Well, I drew that flyer myself, and I paid for them out of my own pocket, and I walked around your neighborhood, and I was really careful. I didn't want to go to your door. I put them on your mailbox, but I put them on the post." She said, "Well, it wasn't really a really flyer. It's just the tacky little blue flags that were hanging around my mailbox." And I realized when I just finished that area where she was, she had one of the mailboxes, it was like 8 mailboxes, and I attacked them around the roof part, and I go, I get it. There's a smiling gray face flapping in the wind, and it was a little tacky. I'll be more concerned. So I've had people give comments that way. Most of my comments about running from my friends are, I won't use the explicative, but it's like, what the heck are you doing? Are you crazy? You want to be involved in that? And I have to kind of reassure them that, this isn't just like I'm jumping into it. I've thought about this for a long time, and this happens to be the right time with family and kids being grown and easing back on business to have the time to do this. So those are some of my experiences.
Yeah, and people that have a sense of normalcy and lack this egotistical agenda or whatever are really needed on council. I think you'd be a great addition. Do you have plans to meet with the senior center soon?
No, that would be great. But is it going to make any difference now and the 3rd?
Well, I don't. We got a couple of weeks, but
here's the hardest part. I think that not the hardest part, but one difficult part. I didn't realize that. I thought you could sign up and just, I'm going to run for the North Ward, and there's 2 positions, and you just run and see what happens. I didn't realize there was a primary, so now I get the primary. And there's 4 in mine, so you get a couple of months to be able to jump in there and get known. Here's a curious thing. Interesting, more than curious. I just checked out everybody else's website and information stuff, over a course of time. And I told my family and my daughter yesterday, I said, "Look, I looked on Ron's and Lisa's and Joe's, and they've got more people who've given them donations and are part of their campaign than I even know on the island." So it's going to be extra hard for me to get those votes, so we'll just have to see how it goes.
Well, hopefully this is a step in the right direction, getting you known by more people.
But it would be fun to meet at the senior center. I just think that, I mentioned this to the Housing Resource Board and to the League of Women Voters. When they first approached the email out, I said, "Can we do this in person?" And have a process where we all sit down and talk more than being on Zoom. And we wasn't quite timing yet with COVID being off to have that happen. But I actually thought when I started this process, what my idea was to contact a Rotary and the senior citizen and just go sit down and say, what I need to do is hear from you. It isn't that I need to be here and tell you what I think. I need to know what you feel about the island and what cares. And that's where I started to listen to the voice on the island, because it's about hearing what people from organizations want and care about and what's important to them, more than me walking in and telling you what I think.
Okay, let me ask you this. What have you heard are the issues that, if you're on council, you should address?
Well, we have a big issue with the police department and that building. What's going to go on with that? That's going to be a really important issue that comes up. And I mentioned in one of my little things that I wrote that it may be taken care of before I even get, I have a chance to get there in the next few months. We have a bunch of money we got from the federal government that, if I have a few minutes, I'd like to go into that story.
Yeah, please.
This really interested me. So I watched that meeting where we were getting the $7 million and the first 3.5 coming to us. And I listened to the finance director lay out these 4 categories for where the money was supposed to be applied and what it was coming for. And it was really clear it's all about COVID relief money mostly, but all the areas are gray and they can be massaged to make it fit somehow. And then I listened to the city manager say, well, I'd like to advise the county that this should be what if money. We should use this for what if we didn't have this money, we could never do these projects.
And this is the new city manager?
New city manager. And then he also says, we didn't have to qualify for this money. There's no need to be shown. It's not a grant money. It's just given to us. And the reason we got it is because we're under 50,000 in population. We get this chunk of money. And I'm thinking, do we really need it? And then I'm wondering, well, the council's going to talk about it because the push is to decide right away. And I thought, no discussion. They just voted to take it. And I'm thinking, do we really need it? How has Bainbridge been affected by COVID? Yes,
I would say small business. Like, for example, like I used earlier, Blue Canary with the infrastructure and then the pandemic going, their business really dropped off to the extent where they shut down an extra day. So if there's COVID relief money, it should go to small local businesses that didn't necessarily get relief from the city during the pandemic.
And that would be a great approach, but I don't think there's anything that I heard, and I'm very minor with this, that would allow much of that to happen, or to allow think the city council is going to direct that money back to that position. And I totally understand what you're talking about, Blue Canary, because I'm a small independent businessman, and I had months and months and months without projects. They couldn't go into somebody's home, right, and be in their kitchen, remodel their kitchen, and do that work. The great thing that I want to say about it is that look at us downtown today. We are making a comeback. People are coming off the ferry. They're walking around for those businesses. Things are happening again. All of us are back at work. Even the simple places like the market and the paint store are asking for people to be hired to get back to work. So we're recovering from there. And
well, I want to pause on it real quick, because you're talking about the Winslow corridor, and it's summer and it's tourist season. There's a lot of small businesses that are up away from the ferry and downtown Winslow too, that suffered through this pandemic. Anyway, go on.
No, I totally agree with that. I totally understand.
I mean, we're sitting in Studio 15 here, and I have not been in here since March 15th, 2020. So it definitely affected me. I had to shut down. I had to do the little Zoom with the flashing numbers in the screen that nobody likes. But then it became standard on CNN and ESPN and everywhere that we're just going to Zoom.
Well, here I would say to that we should get the small business community, you, the people in the North End, anywhere else, there's in Chamber of Commerce, and you should really lobby, if that's the right word to use, City Councilman, because this what if money is going to not go there. All right. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some small little $15,000 grants or $10,000 grants here, but it's not really going to be involved in that.
And it can't just be for nonprofit businesses either. It's got to be for all small businesses. There's like 600 nonprofits on this island, and they have the ability to get grant money and donations and stuff. If you're just a straight up business and you change tires or something like that, that's what you do. So each one has to be treated equally, I think, for sure.
Well, here's the thing that I know from being in business for 40 years. You're in business and you're successful because you can adapt and you can work and find ways to make it work. And hopefully all the businesses you're talking about and the ones that aren't just in the downtown Winslow have found a way to kind of adapt and get through it. And now we're recovering, and I don't know if pushing money at somebody is the right way to say, okay, keep recovering. I don't know.
Yeah, but there was a good year where we didn't have recovery money on a consistent basis, for sure. I just feel like if it's a what if fund, what's been worse than a pandemic in our lifetime? I can't really think of anything. Yeah, I got beat up when I was sixth grader by Jeff Decker. I'm still looking for you, buddy. That was pretty bad. But other than that, pandemic has hit my life extremely hard, right? So I don't see anything other than another pandemic coming down the road for that what if money.
Yep.
Yeah. What if there's an earthquake? Well, I'll see you in the ocean. It's dust.
Well, I would just say they gave it to the wrong people then, because I don't think the city knows how to utilize it.
So as a citizen, how do you see the lobbying process going? You just knock on the door, put your hand out, and
keep
knocking on the door.
Here's my what if money, all right? I would say to find a way to give it all away. That's what I would do. I would say, what if we decided that Helpline House has a better way of helping the people that need to be helped? Here's $100,000. What if we decided that Housing Resources Board had a better way of getting people into houses? Here's $500,000. Mm-hmm. What if we decided the land trust was better at storing our land and protecting our watersheds and working for our aquifers, and we gave them $500,000? What if we gave it to One Call Does It All and we gave them $500,000? What if we found a way to give all that money away to organizations that are better than we are? What if to help small businesses was a $500,000 donation to Rotary or to the Chamber of Commerce, but just give it away because Bainbridge's city budget, from my reading, and there's a huge budget, went down about 9%. And then we got some funds back, so there's like a 3 or 5% loss of revenues. And we now have all kinds of homes that come on the market at 1.5 million new homes.
Well, like those Grove houses you were talking about, they're already reselling now because they're going for $2 million.
My point with that is we put these new properties on that are going for higher values. They're all new tax bases, and all of us are getting new tax assessments in our mail. All right, mm-hmm. All of us the city's going to be just fine. That city's going to be no problem with the money they have and recovering. And if we're going to take that money for what if projects, it should go back to the people in our community. You say we have 600 nonprofits, then we should give them all a piece of it.
You said the A word, and I want to get back to that aquifer. One of my favorite subjects on this island. Schools. We're always short paying the teachers a livable wage. There's a click-a-thon every year. There's a donation. You have to pay extra $400 or whatever to play sports. There's less transportation. How do we solve that? I know this is not really a city council problem, but if we have what-if money, how do we channel that into the school system? And does the school system need to be broken and rewritten to some extent?
There's a big question.
Because I don't want my school to be underfunded every single year. My teachers not getting paid what they deserve, and then a big hand of give me more money 3 times a year or whatever.
Well, I don't think you can go there because we're not part of the school district. I agree with you. But in this funding, I'm sure we can decide in the COVID money that our schools didn't have the facilities they needed and our teachers didn't get what they needed. And I don't think you can give them a raise, but you could certainly say, how many teachers are on the island from elementary school up? 100, 150? You could just say, here's $1,000 each or here's $2,000 to the teacher to utilize in the classroom any way they want. I mean, it could come out of that money.
So why do you think they can't get a raise or shouldn't get a raise?
I don't think they should, and I don't think the city council can do anything about that raise. I totally agree with you. I told you earlier today, my wife was a couple years as a teacher, and she said it was the hardest job she ever did in her life. And it takes a huge dedication to be a teacher. And I do think that they're underpaid for what we ask for their value. But I don't know how you change that with the city council. The school board and the city council are so different, and so separate.
Mm-hmm. How do you think city council is doing in their approach to I said I'd go back to aquifers. Equality for All and Race Equity Network and projects like that.
Yes, I thought we were just going to have a conversation on all the tough questions thrown at me.
I don't know what I'm doing, so we'll just go to aquifers.
We could go to those things. And I'll tell you, I talked to the Bainbridge Black Leaders Network, and I'm honest, I'm one of the 90%. All right. So the important thing for me here is not to talk to you, is for me to listen to you and see what you have to say.
That's brilliant.
Yes, maybe I'm naive of the whole situation. I don't want to throw out words to say this is what we should do and we should be inclusive. We should do this. I just want to hear what's needed and then get to work on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. To aquifers. Do we have an aquifer system that can stand up to the usage of all these islanders? Do you feel, second part of that question is, do you feel the critical area ordinance was written with truthful and honest aquifer science?
I've always liked geology. So I in the past, before this, I took some looks at geological surveys and stuff that when they did our aquifers. And same question that was being asked when I moved here, like, where the heck's the water coming from? And so I just kind of followed that. So we have a pretty good mapping of that. And I think there's some wells that are being monitored on a regular basis to see what's going on with our water. And we know that it's recharged mostly by the water that percolates through the ground on slower times of saturation when there's a runoff. So we have to protect those areas. We have to protect more of every part of it, which to me goes back to even the smaller houses on lots where somebody could put in a little bit of lawn around them and a little bit of grass. So some of that water goes back into the system a little bit. It's not much, but it's minor. So I haven't read the critical areas, report or whatever it is. I just think that we have to protect those areas and it would be something to be evaluated and take a look at. But yes, we have to keep construction away from it. We have to keep areas that are just natural and let the water flow back.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Anything you want to add to this?
Just on the aquifer. So you're a dog walker. I'm a dog walker on the outside. You walk around some of our trails and Gasm Lake and also at the Grand Forest. There's some old ponds there. Mm-hmm. Some old ponds that you can see where the water naturally drains down to and is part of it's associated. Those are the kind of things we need to keep those areas protected. Now, they're holding water, so they're not necessarily things that percolate in the ground very fast, but it's like a holding area that allows water to kind of come in and come out. And those are the watersheds we really have to protect. And we have the land trusts and other organizations that are buying land to do that. And we just have to facilitate them and just be more responsible.
And there seems to be a watershed with every new development too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you cut a tree, you plant three.
And I don't think, my little small reading understanding, I don't think we have an idea of what we really can pull out of the ground. And I don't think we ever will. I mean, it's limited and it's not, I would guess it's not recharging as fast as we're taking it out. So there's going to be some limitation there as to what we can take out of this, ground and utilize on the island. So we have to be conscious of it. Water's precious and important, and we have to kind of remember that every time we flush our toilet or drink a glass.
Yeah, and some of those toilets got some really brown water, depending on where you live in this island. It's just definitely not the best water situation. I know we recently started filtering all our water, and we didn't have the problem of the brown water, but you see the Facebook groups like, well, I just moved here. Should my bath water be brown? And I'm glad we're not in that situation, but ours is kind of dirty as well. Any other big ideas that you have or things that you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I've kind of read everything that he's written. I've kind of been involved in, some of these online things, the Zoom conference. I think the great thing is we all have different ways, but there's 4 people who care about our environment. There's 4 people who really kind of want to be conscious of that in everything we do. So that's a good thing. It makes me feel better. I think I told you a couple of Zoom things I've been on. I feel better about some of the people on the island. Everybody cares here, that's why we have involvement in committees and people really working to take care of things. It's why you have your podcast here. You care about where you live. We have a great place that happens and we just have to use that resource to be part of what we're doing too as a council and as a city.
Awesome. Dennis Miller, North Ward City Council candidate. Thank you for your time. I wish you all the best, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to walking in the Grand Forest with you with some dogs here soon.
Sounds good, Tim. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, you've been listening to The Bystander. Be kind.